Have you ever found yourself in the pit of despair? Something so heavy on your heart that you don't know what to do with it. You don't know how to handle it. Maybe it's a mistake you've made. Maybe it's a multiple mistakes that you've made that keep on dogging your life down. And maybe years pass and you fall back into that same pit. And you wonder to yourself, why does this keep happening to me? Is it choices that I'm making and decisions that I'm making, or is it just the human plight? And it's a question that my friend Christian asked himself. One morning he woke up and found himself trapped in this pit of despair. He called out for help. The pit had straight walls 10 feet tall, and there was no way for him to get out by himself. The first person to walk by was ex-military. When he heard Christian's call for help, he told him, "Suck it up, dig deep, drive on." Then he threw Christian a shovel. But Christian couldn't suck it up. He couldn't drive on. He wondered what to do with this shovel. And so he just continued to dig deeper and make his pit further down than it started. The problem with humans is sometimes when we're in a pit, we're very aware of it. And other times we have no idea. The scripture tells us that we think we're rich, that we've gained great wealth, and that we're in need of nothing, that we don't realize that we're poor, naked, and blind. But Christian seemed to be aware of his situation. He seemed to be aware of the help that he needed. Several days later, a social worker happened by, and Christian called out for help again. The social worker told Christian to use the tools that he'd been given. "And I'll help you. I'll give you more tools." And so he threw a bucket down into the pit with Christian. So Christian worked all the harder with the new tools that he'd been given. He dug the pit deeper and deeper, and he found that he was still in the pit, but now his bucket was full of the dirt that surrounded him. A psychiatrist walked by, and Christian called out to him, "Help me, I can't get out of this pit that I'm in. Can you help me?" The psychiatrist gave him some drugs and said, "Take these. It will relieve the pain." Christian thanked the man for his help, but when the pills ran out, he found that he was still in the pit. A well-known psychologist rode by and heard the cries for help. He stopped and asked Christian, "How did you get into this pit? Were you born there? Did your parents put you there? Tell me about yourself. It will help alleviate your sense of loneliness if you share it with me." So Christian talked with him for about an hour. Then the psychologist had to leave, but he said he'd be back next week. And Christian thanked him, but found that he was still in the pit. A minister came by and reminded Christian about the importance of Scripture. The minister gave him a Bible and said, "I'll pray for you." He got down on his knees and prayed for Christian. Then he left Christian. When he left, Christian was grateful, very grateful, in fact. He read the Bible, but found he was still stuck. Then one day, a simple man happened to be passing by. He had no degree in theology, no PhD in front of his name, just a simple, ordinary man, nothing to draw someone to him by outward appearance. Christian called out to him, "Can you help me? I've been stuck in this pit for so long." Without hesitation, the man did something no one else had done. He jumped down into the pit with Christian. Christian was speechless for a moment. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Now we're both stuck down here." But there was something about this man, something in his eyes, something about the way he carried himself. The man replied, "Calm down, Christian, and believe in me. It's okay. I've been down here before, and I know the way out. Hear me, O Israel. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, bone for bone. If men fight and hurt a woman with child so that she gives birth prematurely, yet no harm follows, he shall surely be punished according to the woman's husband's will. And he shall pay as the judges determine. But if any harm follows, then you shall give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. Whoever kills any man shall surely be put to death. Whoever kills an animal shall make it good, animal for animal. If a man causes disfigurement of his neighbor, as he has done, so shall it be done to him. Fracture for a fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. As he has caused disfigurement of his fellow man, so shall it be done to him. And whoever kills an animal shall restore it, but whoever kills a man shall be put to death. Show no pity. Life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers has those words. Makes you think a little bit about capital punishment. Words that God had given Moses to give to the people to keep order and justice within their camp and their community. I have a cousin. Her name was Stacy. And they live down in, her family lives down in Frostproof, Florida. We would go down to visit them. We still do. And there was a gentleman that thought that the road they lived on was a racetrack. He would drive his Camaro up and down this road, out in the country, 60 miles an hour. Home, to the grocery store, home, to work, wherever he was going. He would just drive this car as fast as he could. And it reminds me of my parents' street here in Lincoln. Sometimes I look out the window and it's people are going up this residential street, seems like 50, 60 miles an hour. And it's like, man, don't you realize that my children are out there and, you know, maybe your children too, you know. Slow down. We're not in that big of a hurry. Well, Stacy, as children often do, had a battle going on with her parents. She wanted to go and get the mail by herself, because if she could just go get the mail by herself, that in her mind was a symbol that she was growing up and that she was a big girl now, you know. And this battle went on for quite some time, with them always telling her that they weren't comfortable with that. She was too little, and in that neighborhood out where they lived, it was a country road, and oftentimes they'll put the mailboxes on the opposite side of the driveway so that the delivery person can just go straight down and deliver to everybody without zigzagging or whatever. And that's the way it was in their neighborhood. And so finally, one day on her birthday, she won the battle. They said, all right, we'll negotiate with you here a little bit. You can go and get the mail today if you'll allow your older brother to go out with you. And she agreed. And so they went out to get the mail. And just at this time, this man was coming in his Camaro, 60 miles an hour. And as they were crossing the street, I don't know if he was distracted or what was going on, but he hit the two kids. The older brother was old enough that he flipped up over the car, and he's alive today. The daughter, Stacy, she was small enough that when the car struck her, it drug her underneath. And she was killed instantly, thank God for that. But the struggles that we have to put up with in this life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, bone for bone, life for life. I would want that justice, if I'm being honest. If I was in that position and someone was driving foolishly and killed one of my children, and in that moment of time their whole lives changed, you can't even put it into words. I've never experienced it myself, but my uncle and my aunt have told me that it's something that can't be explained, that you have to experience that kind of pain and loss for yourself. Words, there are no words. The family obviously took different courses for a while on how they handled the loss. But a day or two later, the gentleman that hit and killed their daughter came and knocked on their door, and my uncle was experiencing all kinds of anguish and anger and just an array of emotion on how he felt about this person. And the guy basically, when my uncle opened the door, fell through the door, and the term falls on your neck, basically fell on his neck and was just sobbing, saying, "I killed your baby. I killed your baby. I can't give it back. What do I do? How do I fix a situation like this?" And my uncle held him in his arms and he says, "I forgive you." He said he didn't feel the forgiveness in that moment, that it took years for that to come true. But in the moment, he gave the man what he needed. "I forgive you." And in that blink of an eye, Satan lost the war. He's still at battle at large with us. But there's little wars going on all over this earth. Little wars like that he keeps losing because of the strength that Christ puts into our lives. It reminds me of Romans 8:28. All things Christ turns for good for those who believe in him. That is a hard verse to understand. The battle shifted. And we know that all things work together for the good of those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. It's hard to swallow, but good has come out of that situation. I personally like to think of Stacy kind of like Mary Magdalene. I like to tell her story, and I think her story will go on for eternity. The story of the triumph her family experienced. The father and mother can say to Satan, "But as for you, you meant evil against us. But God meant it for good, in order to bring it about as it is this day, to save many people." When bad things happen to us, It's an opportunity to show the power of God. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it'll happen immediately. But its opportunity is there. The story isn't over. Her parents will be reunited with their child, and God's name will be praised. Satan has lost the battle. He's lost the war. We're told that the angels will bring our babies to us and set them in our arms. I'm looking forward to that day. I have a child, in addition to the 3 that I've been blessed with here, that I'm going to get to hold on Resurrection Day. It's just another thing to look forward to. The Scripture tells us that there was war in heaven, and I can't fathom that. There was war in heaven. God allowed war because of freedom of choice. Lucifer became jealous of Jesus' position in heaven. He wanted to exalt his position above the throne of God, a position that wasn't his for the taking. So he tried to take it by force. He tried to take it by deception. He tried to take it by lies. And he brought 1/3 of the angels with him. He confused angels with the thoughts about God being power hungry and that God was just out for himself. He told them God was only into having his created beings come and worship him so that he could receive the glory. And I think that Satan was expecting God to react in the manner of an eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, bone for bone. He got thrown from heaven, but the universe got to see the results of the rebellion. They didn't see an eye for an eye. They didn't see tooth for tooth. This is what they saw. You have heard that it was said, eye for eye and tooth for tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If someone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go 2. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Even the tax collectors and the pagans do that. And if you only greet your own people, what are you doing more than others? Do not even the pagans do that? Be perfect, therefore, as your Father in heaven is perfect. And they're talking about love here. As our relationship grows with God, our love grows more perfect, so that we will not be afraid on the day of judgment, but we can face God with confidence because we live like Jesus here in this world. Such love has no fear, because perfect love expels all fear. If we are afraid, it is for fear of punishment, and this shows that we have not fully experienced God's perfect love. We love each other because of God's example to us, that he loved us first. If someone says, I love God, but I hate my fellow believer, that person is a liar. For if we don't love people which we can see, how can we say that we love God whom we've never seen? And he has given us this command, Those who love God must also love their fellow believers. Never avenge yourselves. Leave that to God, for He has said that He will repay those who deserve it. We can't see it. We don't know the heart. Don't take the law into your own hands. Instead, feed your enemy if he is hungry. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. And you'll be heaping coals of fire on his head. In other words, he will feel ashamed of himself for what he has done to you.